Right, greetings everyone. I just wanted to give a quick shout out. We had a great interview regarding DC Statehood, and really will give you some good insight on why it's important. And it really also brings up another issue that sometimes gets a little twisted around in some circles regarding the issue of voting. Again, uh, voting is a tool. So when you hear people talk about should I vote or uh, not voting is probably the weakest strategy you could ever have in a body of politics. At the end of the day, when you don't vote, it actually gives other people more power over you. And that becomes problematic. And so when we talk about DC statehood and questions of representation and voting, if you really are trying to tell the system that you don't support it, try not paying your taxes. And you'll see which one from voting or paying taxes, which one is the real thing that the system's trying to extract from you. They're not trying to extract your vote. They don't the system doesn't even want you to vote. It really tries to do as little as it can to entice you or even have you engage in the political process whatsoever. So that be going to council hearings or going on Capitol Hill for their hearings. They don't want us to participate. So in every way that you can, be engaging of your system, but also again, we always talk about an agenda. Have an agenda that you're literally not only holding the politicians accountable, but you hold yourself accountable to. So with that being said, definitely great episode, super amazing insight, activist. I don't want to give it all out, but I want you to listen to it and really take that information and take action. I am because we are Sinclair Skinner. Thank you.
Today's episode of I Love Black People on Howard University's Radio Voices on Sirius XM 141 is brought to you by The Global Green Book, a Black Survival Guide. The Global Green Book 2020, the Healthcare Edition, which identifies Black-friendly and Black-owned healthcare providers worldwide. A Black Survival Guide highlighting places across the globe for Black people. The Global Green Book, available on Amazon and iloveblackpeople.com.
All right. Welcome everyone to I Love Black People. And today we have an amazing guest who's been putting in the good work for our people literally for decades. And it's very important as we always talk about here, the global Black agenda and how we can use revolutionary innovation in order to address the issues that we've been facing. We have a lot of old problems that need some new solutions. And one of those old problems is lack of representation. And today's guest is going to really give us an understanding about DC statehood and what it means, not just to the folks in DC, but what it means to everyone in this country, and make sure that Black folks, no matter where they are fully represented and have all the rights and privilege. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my sister, your sister, good sister, Anise Jenkins. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Anise.
you so much, Sinclair, for inviting me. I really am privileged to be a resident, a lifelong resident of Washington, D.C. I am so proud to be here in the nation's capital. I always, as a child, felt very proud, but I learned that we lack things that we don't have in the District of Columbia. D.C. residents are not full American citizens because we pay federal taxes, the highest federal taxes per person in the country, but we have no representation, no voting representation in either the House or the United States Senate. That is a huge problem. That is what this country was founded on, taxation without representation. We have had many civil rights workers to live in Washington, D.C. We had the Honorable Marion Barry from SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. We
All right,
had
Mary Berry.
Delegate.
Woo! All right.
Yes, indeed. He was a fighter. He came up here to start the Free DC movement. He was assigned by Dr. James Foreman to come up and straighten things out, which he did try to do, but he was opposed by the Congress. They didn't want anybody to touch DC like Marion Barry touched our hearts. So we also had our non-voting delegate, Delegate Walter Fauntroy. who came from a civil rights organization, and he tried to fight for DC rights. He tried very hard, but he didn't have the right things to go for. We need statehood. Statehood is the only answer to our problem. Statehood will give us all citizenship rights that we need. We don't need to have over 712,000 people living right here in the heart of the nation without rights. We need to have these rights now. The only way we can get these rights is if we get the support of people from around the country. We want to reach out to you to ask you to get your senators and your representatives to vote for DC statehood when it comes up for a vote in the Congress. We had a great celebration in June of last year, June 2020. It passed the House of Representatives. The bill passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 232 to 108. The 232 included 0 Republican voters. Not one Republican member of the Republican Congress voted for DC statehood. Why is that? DC has been told that we are too black, too liberal, too Democrat, and too urban to be a state. That is a high insult. We don't know, we don't need to be told how we vote, what color our skin is, how we feel about progressive programs. We don't need anybody to tell us how we should vote. We saved this country. Black people, in the voice of James Clyburn from South Carolina, Stacey Abrams from Alabama. We had black people out there fighting for this country, for democracy. We had, before gentrification has struck DC, we had a majority of black people as residents of the District of Columbia. This is a stone civil rights fight. It is a fight for full rights. We need your help. You, around the people in the nation, we need you to reach out and help us get these rights. These rights are shared by the people who live in Maryland, across the river from us, in Virginia, across the other river from us. Why don't we have it? I'll tell you why we don't have it. We don't have it because the Congress is made up of conservatives who still see DC as a majority black nation's capital. We need to be free. We need to break these chains that bind us to the United States Congress. We need to break the chains. We need you to help us in this fight. We need black people in this country to help us in the District of Columbia get these rights. We need you to reach out to your family, your friends, your relatives, your members of Congress, and free us. We need to be free, break the chains. We
All right.
participate.
So I
We
think I think you made a great point about some of these connections, and maybe we can unwrap some of this because this is real powerful. The connection between DC and the fact that the people that live in the district pay federal taxes, yet unlike other people in other parts of the country where they have 2 senators and they had Congress people to represent their states, we don't have that. We just have delegates that are non-voting delegates that don't give us the full representation, even though we're paying money. And I guess we also, I think one of the things that I've heard brought up in the past is that we also have young people who've gone and served in wars and have died, and yet did not have the ability to have somebody representing them to either vote for or against said military action. So in many ways, as we fight for democracy across the world, there are citizens, U.S. citizens in America who are not afforded those same opportunities. and it's about time that changes. And I think the history that you gave with Honorable Marion Barry, who's been amazing, Honorable Walter Fauntroy, who's been a civil rights and a human rights champion now for decades and decades. And I guess now we have the delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's been leading the good fight, and our sister Mayor Mira Bowser, who's been really making us proud by representing the whole district in a way that says that we can stand up to white racist bullies coming in and trying
That's
to
right.
disrupt our democracy. I guess now that you made it very clear that the way that people can help us is by reaching out to the Congress people. Do you have any information on the different bills or what the process looks like, and how people can get more information? And I know you've been working with a lot of organizations over the years. Maybe you could name some of those organizations where people can actually get more information, more background.
Yes, I do have information. We have a website which is www.freedc. It's on my hat, freedc.org. We have a lot of information on our website. We also work with DC Vote, which is a pro DC Statehood organization. There are other organizations, Students for DC Statehood. We have in Ward 8, one of our blackest communities, there is Phil Pennell, who has the Anacostia Coordinating Committee, which is for DC Statehood. We have many organizations in the District of Columbia that have joined this fight. As I said, last year, H.R. 51, the House bill for DC Statehood, passed for the first time in history. We have just had Senator Carper of Delaware introduced a statehood bill in the Senate this year. A couple of weeks ago, he just introduced it. He is pro-statehood. He is from the same state as the President of the United States. This is very important. We have the support of Joe Biden, and we have Kamala Harris, who as a senator supported DC statehood. She is now the Vice President of the United States.
All right, the first
I
Black
think we
woman
are
to lead
going.
it. Right, we ready.
That's
We ready.
right.
It's time. The time
That's
is
right.
now. All right, is
I
that right? The
attended
time
Howard
is now.
University. That's
You
right,
know,
and we got Howard
you know.
University.
All right. Well,
That's
good
right.
stuff.
We got Howard University behind Kamala Harris and behind DC Statehood. So we are almost there. We can feel it in our hearts. We are almost there. We've been working hard. As I said, we want to reach out to the nation to support us in these rights that we have been restricted from. We have no say-so over the impeachment of the President of the United States, which is ridiculous. We have no say-so over the stimulus bill. They considered us a colony, a territory, which we are not. They cut the money that they granted the states for the stimulus bill. They cut us by $750 million. That is discrimination, and that is wrong.
I think you just brought something up that it would be helpful to give people context. Even when we saw the white supremacists take over the Capitol, and how ultimately, praise God, we had the Metropolitan Police that was eventually able to help and assist, but there was a issue that we didn't have, really sovereignty or control. Do you have any information about what happened there, or where people
Yes.
find out? Yes.
Our mayor, Muriel Bowser, who should be our governor if we were a state, had no control over our National Guard. She had to wait for Mike Pence, the vice president, to call out our National Guard, made up of our citizens, to protect the capital of the United States. That is something that people around the country should be concerned about. We couldn't call out the National Guard to protect the national capital. That is a situation that has to end and can be ended by us being a state, being the 51st state in the United States of America.
All right, it's about time. Our time is now, and I think the point you're making is very critical. That even when it comes to protecting our citizens, making sure that our representation has the tools and the ability, just by law, to actually protect us and to be in such a critical location for the world and for the country. I mean, we have embassies from all over the world here. We have so many of the government enclaves. Everyone who's here, who's a citizen, deserve a right to actually be able to participate. And like you said, the stimulus, these are things, unemployment, these are all issues that face us as face district residents as citizens. I think it's important that we bring you back on this show in the future, just to kind of give us updates of what's happening, as well as give people even more of a picture of what the future would look like with the District of Columbia being the first state. I don't know if it's New Columbia. I know there's been certain names that have been mentioned, but I think the biggest point is the substance of sovereignty. I think we have too many,
Yes.
these things talking about Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill. At the end of the day, we need to make sure we get our reparations. We need to make sure that we get our representation, and we're not going to let people sidetrack us with symbols. And of course, Harriet being on the 20s is a great thing, but that's no way a substitute for full citizenship and sovereignty and say so. So I love it. As we wrap up, are there any parting words in the last 30 seconds, good Sister Jenkins, that you could share with the listeners across the country?
Yes, brother. I would like to people to know that our state has been officially named Frederick Douglass Commonwealth. We would be named after the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass. So
All
that
right.
lets you know where our heads are at, where our heads in DC are at, why the Republicans would not vote for statehood.
All
We
right.
are
Well, look,
ready
Frederick
for it.
Douglass. All right, Frederick Douglass. That's what we're talking about. We talking about names and liberation. So thank you so much, Sister Jenkins. And again, thank you for your commitment to us. And I know sometimes as an activist, it's very difficult, and that other people might get to shine and politicians might get to shine. But we know it's the activists that are really the revolution. We are the revolution we've been looking for. And
Thank
you've been
you.
the revolution that even when people weren't talking about it, even when this wasn't a popular topic, you committed a lifetime to this. And we're just so thankful for you. Thank you for all those names of folks that may not even been able to make it to see this day, but they definitely continue to live through you, live through us as our ancestors. And we're just so thankful to have you to be a champion on this day, to be here in 2021, to make sure that we achieve this goal of true sovereignty as a people and get what we deserve as a state. So again, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us on this journey. This is so important, and we thank Sister Jenkins.
Thank you.
No, thank you, sister. And I always close, I am, because we are.
And now our weekly reparations segment with reparations activist Dreesen Heath.
Sister Heath, what's the update? What's going on with reparations, sis?
Thanks so much, Sinclair. A lot moving in the reparations space in the U.S. right now. Senator Booker, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, introduced the Senate companion to H.R. 40, claiming the number 40 for his bill as well. So that bill number is S40. Which was a huge win because that symbolic nature of 40 recognizes the promise. We did once have a reparations, 40 acres and a mule. So we're so thankful to Senator Booker being a champion on reparations and working to secure that number. And especially in the wake of the insurrection, in the midst of a number of political battles, him and his staff have been dedicated to getting this reintroduced and clearly showing they understand that we must begin the process to right the wrongs of racial violence and discriminatory policies experienced by the Black community. So we see 16 total senators on that bill as it was introduced, and we will climb that number as time comes. But we also saw 14 more House members in just this week co-sponsor HR 40. And so I think we're in a position where, you know, the public is really understanding, and there's a growing recognition of racial injustice and the enduring impacts of slavery currently. Whether that's, you know, the fact that Black youth rates are rising, Black youth suicide rates are rising at the faster rate than any other racial or ethnic group, or the fact that there
Wow.
is a greater disparity of infant mortality among Black babies today than it was when Black women were enslaved in 1850. You know, the wealth gap being as large as it was in 1968. You know, households, Black households and white households both having high school diplomas, yet white households have 10 times more wealth than those Black households.
And how does that all impact the overall result that we're trying to get the bill passed?
Absolutely. I love that question. So when I talked about the 14 members joining on and co-sponsoring the bill, that brings us to a total number of 157 co-sponsors. In order for the bill to pass out of the House and be voted on and excel out of the House and be voted on the floor, you need 218 votes. 218 votes.
218. So 218 now, but it has to come out of the Judiciary Committee first, right?
Absolutely.
No?
It has to come out of the subcommittee first. So the House Judiciary Committee is the subcommittee of this bill, which needs 23 votes for the bill to succeed out of the House Judiciary Committee. There are 44 members currently on the committee today. So, you know, it has to pass out of Judiciary Committee first, and we believe that we have the votes to do so. We've seen constituencies urge their members to not only co-sponsor, but to encourage votes on HR 40.
The co-sponsorship helps us get to the point where before the vote even takes place, to know and be able to count how many people are with us.
Exactly. There's a high probability that people who have co-sponsored a bill, meaning they heard from their constituencies and they believe that this represents the values of their communities that they're representing, then they are therefore going to vote yes when the bill comes before them. So it absolutely is essential to heighten and increase the co-sponsor number so that we're closer to our goal of passing this bill out of the House.
Okay. And then the number, I guess, in the Senate would be, we would need 50 plus one. And I guess that's Sister Kamala is, and we're at, you said already at 16.
16 co-sponsors in the Senate. We had 20 in the last Congress. So I think we're definitely on pace to surpass that. But it's going to take some more advocacy. It's going to take some more people calling their senators. It's going to take some people being real bullish about the urgency of this issue now and convincing their senators that this is a high priority issue on the list of racial justice issues that will tackle white supremacy, issues that will examine white supremacist violence, issues that will end systemic racism. And so, you know, that's where we are today in terms of building up that number, but being in a very good position early on within the 117th Congress.
And then as it relates to the legislative side, is there a calendar that we need to be aware of?
So right now, you know, I think we're building. We don't have a specific vote date for the Judiciary Committee. However, we are building up towards that. And co-sponsorship is a huge part of that. So the timeline is as quickly as possible. You know, we want this bill to be prioritized within the first quarter of this Congress. We are now at the first, week of February. Early February. It's Black History Month. There are a lot of promises that have been made to protect the Black community. Now is the time to deliver on that within these next few weeks. And, President Biden has the power to establish an HR 40 style commission by the stroke of a pen. So, that's also something that we've been advocating for. We've been meeting with his administration and transition team to get them to see this issue, given especially that this was a promise made by President Biden when he was on the campaign trail and his Lift Every Voice plan for Black America, that he would study reparations. So this is clearly something that he's supportive of and that he should follow through on.
Multiple avenues to pursue this reparations that we deeply deserve. Do you have anything to close this out with in the last 10 seconds or so here?
Absolutely. Studying is essential to the acknowledgement and the documenting of the wrongs of government policies, federal policies that have endangered Black life in the US. So that needs to be documented, and proposals and recommendations are going to come out of that to help heal that harm, to help repair the Black community. And so we really, there's CBC members that we need to get to, Congressional Black Caucus members that are totally, not on the bill yet. And we
awesome.
will also.
All right. Well, thank you so much. No, look, sis, thank you so much. We got so much we could talk about this with the time that we have, but just thank you. And we appreciate you. Please give us an update. Next week, we got to keep driving on this. So thank you so much, Sister Dreesen. And your work is definitely so helpful. And everyone thank you for joining us on this journey. We're going to keep making sure that we give you everything you need to know about reparations with I Love Black People. I am because we are. Thank you so much.
Today's episode of I Love Black People on Howard University's Radio Voices on Sirius XM 141 is brought to you by the Global Green Book, a Black survival guide. The Global Green Book 2020, the Healthcare Edition, which identifies Black-friendly and Black-owned healthcare providers worldwide. A Black survival guide highlighting places across the globe for Black people. The Global Green Book, available on Amazon and iloveblackpeople.com. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.